and welcome to DPRTE 2025 at Farnborough International.
So for me, events like DPRTE, it's about bringing the community together. So we have MOD, we have government here, we have some of our prime suppliers.
We now have to be prepared to fight longer wars, and that's going to be a team sport with all the people that Julie has talked about.
Today it's been a real buzz in the room, a lot going on, very topical across the piece today.
Part of what I'm really looking forward to is getting around the event, talking to people, reconnecting, hearing firsthand actually what some of those issues and challenges are.
I'm looking forward to meeting our client base and getting our services within new client base that are exhibiting or attending the show.
DPRTE is really important to have that full representation and full inclusivity across all genders.
So I always enjoy the keynote speeches, so I've been listening to a few of them, and then I've got a couple of other points lined up across the next couple of days with supplier meetings.
So the key things I'm looking forward to in the events is hearing from colleagues, but also particularly industry, and what they've achieved from their innovations and insights.
These events are incredibly important in terms of an opportunity to bring folk together, to actually spend time face to face. I think that's probably the most important point.
I think DPRTE is a really good example of the opportunity that we need to speak to the whole of the supply chain.
Great to see what a huge success it's been and how much busier it is, and we've expanded across into 2 days.
We really want to kind of get over to our kind of supply chain, our industry partners that work with us today, but also those that don't. The really vast amount of opportunities that defence infrastructure offers.
DPRTE 2025 has been an amazing success, and if you have aspirations or you're in the UK defence supply chain, get yourselves to DPRTE 2026.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Graham Steed, the Director of Public Policy and Research at BIP Solutions, and I'm delighted to be your host today for what I think is a really timely and important conversation. The UK defence market is changing really rapidly. Budgets are rising, new strategies are being published, and the opportunities for suppliers have never been greater. As everyone knows, we are living in pretty dynamic and changing times. Ukraine, obviously current events in the Middle East being just two examples of a complex and fast-moving landscape. And it's really more important than ever before that the MOD is engaging with engaged suppliers that are informed and knowledgeable about its needs and requirements. Now, before I bring in our fantastic guests, let me just set the scene about two other really important initiatives that are supporting the UK defence market. One is DCI, or Defence Contracts International, the UK's leading defence security business intelligence and tendering service owned by BIP Solutions, and it provides access to comprehensive defence procurement opportunities, analysis and market intelligence. And the other, which we'll be spending a little bit of time discussing on this webinar, is the DPRTE event, Defence Procurement Research, Technology and Exportability. And that's the UK defence industry's premier annual event connecting suppliers directly with MOD buyers. DPRTE takes place on the 25th and 26th of March at the Farnborough International Exhibition and Conference Centre, and it's an event that we are all very much looking forward to. So two great initiatives there to kind of help you, along with obviously the many initiatives that the MOD has, which we're going to talk about and unpack over the course of the next 45 to 50 minutes or so. So I'm delighted to say that I'm not flying solo on this webinar. I do have two great guests joining me today. The first is John Kite, and John leads the supplier relations team at the UK Ministry of Defence and is one of the people at the very heart of the MOD's work to engage, grow and support its supply chain. So John, great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Graham. Delighted to be here.
Thank you, John. And later we're going to hear from another John Rodigan, Business Development Manager here at DCI, who spends his days working directly with suppliers of all shapes and sizes, helping them to find and win defence business. So we'll come to John Rodigan shortly. So let's get into the discussion, and we'll start with the big picture. Anyone that's been following defence news over the last couple of years will know that we are in a generally different moment for UK defence spending and ambition. We've had the Strategic Defence Review, we've had the Defence Industrial Strategy, we've got a commitment to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP and an aspiration of 3%, and potentially going even further beyond that in the future. We've had the very recent creation of the new Defence Office for Small Business Growth, and we have the upcoming Defence Investment Plan. So the signals, I don't think, could be any clearer. Defence is obviously a national priority. There's lots going on, and procurement within defence is also changing with a focus on pace and delivery and readiness. And that means opportunity for suppliers. So John, perhaps to get us started from your vantage point inside the MOD, how significant is this moment, and what does this all mean in practice for suppliers?
Thanks, Graham. I think to answer the first part of your question, it couldn't be any more significant. You can't overstate the importance of what's going on at the moment, I think. And back to your point about, if you've been following world events, if you've been following what's happening in defence over the last 5 years or so, we're living in a more unstable, more contested world, I think our political leaders would describe it as. And I think there's been a recognition within the UK and kind of more broadly in Europe, I think, that we need to stand on our own 2 feet, that we are responsible for our own defence and security. And the result of that is, as you say, an increase in spending within the UK and kind of more broadly again against in our allied nations in France, in Germany and elsewhere. There's been a significant uptick in defence spending. For us, what it means is we need to think about what sovereign capability we need to grow and develop in the UK. And it means, I think, from an industry perspective, number one, that there will just be greater opportunity because we're spending more. But I think also what it means is that for suppliers who are perhaps less familiar with defence, there's an opportunity to get involved in the defence supply chain in potentially in a way which they haven't before. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we can reach out into adjacent sectors. So automotive is a really good example of that, where the skills, the experience and the capacity exists to help us deliver the defence effect that we expect to need in the future. And as you say, that series of announcements last year, the upcoming Defence Investment Plan, all of those things are leading to a hopefully a more stable and a clearer demand signal for industry, so suppliers can position themselves in the right way ahead of time.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a really good start to this webinar, and I think sets the context nicely. I mentioned a bunch of different kind of policies and announcements. The Defence Industrial Strategy, obviously key amongst those, and that references supply chain resilience and building a UK-wide defence industrial base. So, what does that mean? I guess in plain English for everybody on this webinar, and what does it mean for the breadth of businesses that potentially could be involved in supporting the MOD?
So again, I think the industrial strategy in particular is a really interesting document, and I advise any participants on today's call to get involved and go and read it if they haven't already done so. I think again it describes a future where we're able to kind of focus in on those priority requirements and capabilities that we've got. So the document itself talks around the nuclear deterrent, around shipbuilding, ground combat systems, complex weapons and munitions, those kind of things, which are things that are fundamental to UK national defence. And I think, as I said a couple of minutes ago, the position is that we recognise that if you move from what is fundamentally a peacetime environment to a less stable environment, there needs to be a scale up of defence, the delivery of defence equipment and consumables. I think what that does is it opens the door to, as I say, non-traditional suppliers getting more involved. And again, looking at those suppliers who may be working in a commercial environment at the moment, but have got technology or product which is amenable to dual use. I think there's a real opportunity there going forward. So come and talk to us. The Office for Small Business Growth that you mentioned at the outset, Graham, I think is one of those conduits into the department and into the wider defence ecosystem. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But it's our intent is to make it easy to transition from those commercial environments into the defence and security environment in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned, we spoke about changing requirements, and I guess what the MOD needs now is very different to what the MOD may have needed in the past, and that in turn does create opportunities for businesses that have maybe not thought about defence as being a core market to maybe consider it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't want to overstate the lessons we're learning in Ukraine, but if you think about Ukraine as an example, I think maybe going back 5 years, our expectation about unmanned systems was more that they would be large-scale replacements for some of the crude systems that we currently have. I think what Ukraine has taught us is that they're not quite kind of consumable, but most of the drones that are being used in that theatre at the moment are very much single use, so one-off pieces of equipment. So they, in that respect, they're more similar to kind of battlefield munitions and those kind of things than they are to the complex weapon systems that we traditionally think about. I think what it's taught us is the speed with which we move needs to change significantly.
Yes.
And the kind of average time it's taking us to procure a new system is 22 months or thereabouts. The iteration of technology is more like 6 to 8 weeks in Ukraine. So you can see there's a mismatch there. So finding ways of kind of squeezing out the time it takes to work with MOD and with our kind of larger strategic partners is going to be important going forward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to jump back a second, you said that we should be reading Defence Industrial Strategy. Completely agree. I think where the MOD has been really transparent. I think the Strategic Defence Review, the DIS, other documentation, it's all there to be read and absorbed and understood by suppliers. And we as a business quite passionately believe, as suppliers, you should be educated about the market and really understand what your intent is as a buyer and what your requirements are, and make sure you're aligning to that. So the information is all out there. Just take the time to go and read it. Now, one of the things that we do hear from suppliers a lot, and I think John Rodigan will probably talk about this a little bit later on, is that defence looks like an interesting market. And a market with plenty of opportunity, especially given what we've been speaking about. But it can feel like quite a difficult market to break into, with long procurement cycles, as you mentioned, complex requirements, not always knowing exactly who to talk to. But the MOD is working actively, as we know, to kind of change that picture. So what's actually happening on the ground to make good on some of these commitments to engaging with the SMEs and to bring, I guess, a more diverse supply chain to life?
It's a fantastic question, Graham, and it gives me an opportunity, I think, to highlight the work we're doing in setting up the Office for Small Business Growth. So we recognised exactly the kind of challenges that you've just described. The Office for Small Business Growth, which went live, was established at the back end of January with support from Luke Pollard as the Minister for Defence Readiness, is intended to make it as simple as possible for any supplier to come and find the right part of the defence environment to engage with. So the job we've been set is really to take away the burden navigating UK defence, which I'm guessing you and most of the people on this call will recognise as a complex and fragmented environment. So we're going to be stepping up the capability of the Office for Small Business Growth through the remainder of this year, hopefully reaching full operating capability by December. And it will offer a whole range of direct support functions to small businesses, and I should say non-traditional suppliers as well. We're not going to absolutely insist that small businesses are SMEs under the kind of legal definition. We will seek to help any supplier who needs our support. And that goes from what I'd call kind of 101 level. This is what you need to know, the basic information you require if you intend to work into defence, linking people up with our colleagues in the exports community to support suppliers who are looking to export, and trying to drive genuine change in the approach that the department takes to its procurement activity. So we've just brought on stream something called the SME Commercial Pathway, which is intended to provide our delivery teams with some fairly clear guidelines around how they can maximise the opportunity for small businesses. So making sure that they are less risk averse than perhaps they've been traditionally, thinking about how they can effectively use early market engagement to talk to the whole of the supply chain rather than just those traditional large suppliers that we're pretty adept at talking to, but it means that we potentially are missing out on the kind of technological advances that are taking place underneath those primes within the supply chain. So thinking through how we talk to industry, thinking through how we make sure that there is a really clear demand signal and a pipeline of opportunities going forward. Because I think the final part of it from our perspective is how do we support smaller businesses working in defence when they're seeking investment and financial support. So if you talk to the investors, they'll say, to be investable, if that's a word, what you need is a pipeline of opportunities and some kind of clear revenue streams going forward. If we can be clear about what we need, that helps, I think, in that way as well. So I guess to summarise, there's some really direct support that we can provide to help you unblock problems and to link you in with the people you need to talk to. We can help if you are seeking to grow your business through investment or through exports. And longer term, we're looking at how we can use the information, the intelligence we gather when we're talking to industry to drive changes in the policies, the processes that the department needs to follow in its procurement activity.
Yeah, and I think everything you've said there, John, and everything that's been happening in the background over the past 6, 12, 18 months or more kind of suggests that this SME involvement, and particularly the small business involvement within MOD supply chains, has gone from being a good to have to a must have.
Absolutely.
If you're going to achieve what you need to achieve.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And again, I think what we've recognised is that we need to curate, we need to look after the whole of the defence ecosystem, not just the primes, because as soon as you start to unpick the supply chain, you realise that the primes are absolutely dependent on the huge number of high quality small businesses that are already providing good services into us, but also that wider group of suppliers who maybe have yet to think about defence, but have got huge amount of value to offer to us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely this is a theme we're going to be drilling into a bit more at DPRT as well, just in terms of how the MOD is setting itself up to be more open to a much wider supply chain, and to kind of help those businesses really understand where to go and interact. And obviously, Defence Office for Small Business Growth, that will be represented at the event, which is really exciting and clearly is going to be a key asset for MOD in kind of reaching out to that supply chain. Just in terms of your team, John, maybe something I should have asked more at the beginning, but the supply relations team, what's the work that you're engaged with, and how does that sit alongside the Defence Office for Small Business Growth and other initiatives?
I mean, I think the two things are absolutely aligned. So we form part of the Supply Chain Directorate within Director General Commercial and Industries area of responsibility. And if you kind of unpick what it says in the Defence Industrial Strategy in particular, so I think DG Commercial and Industry, Jim Carter, has said there are 93 separate mentions of small businesses in that document. So I think that gives you some indication of the kind of senior direction of travel within the department. Our job is through the office is obviously to support small businesses directly. We're also working really closely with the 15 or so strategic partners to defence, so the largest of our primes, to make sure that they are opening up opportunities within the supply chain. So ideally, I think my ideal scenario is that there's a one-stop shop ultimately for opportunities in defence. So not only looking at the direct opportunities for working with the department, but also thinking about where you may fit into the supply chain. So I think fundamentally those things come together, and it's massively important for kind of delivering the policy and intent that we take all of these things kind of on a holistic basis, I guess is the best way to describe it. And we also work obviously with organisations like yours, Graham, so BIP, and the trade bodies, the regional defence and security clusters, and others who've all got kind of clear routes to engagement to the wider market. So taken as a whole, we're just trying to make sure that defence in the UK is as open and as accessible as it can be.
Yeah, and it's beginning to feel like it's a bit more joined up now as well. You mentioned the clusters, the events that we're running, the things that you're doing as MOD. It does, through these events, you can actually begin to see that alignment is beginning to form, and the messages are becoming more consistent throughout, which can only be good, I think, for the for the supply chain. Innovation, that's a word that's coming up constantly within defence procurement. So, from your perspective, John, where do you see the future or the current and future hotspots for defence growth, and where can innovative suppliers, do you think, really have a chance to make an impact?
It's a really good question, Graham. I'm going to preface what I say next by saying that one of the things that I'm really keen to avoid is just that kind of supposition that an SME is by its nature an innovator. So there is, and this is a conversation that goes on internally as well, I think. So there is a whole range of suppliers out there who are doing fantastic work within the supply chain. I think they wouldn't necessarily characterize themselves as innovators, simply good quality companies delivering goods and services into the wider defence environment. Having said that, going back to the industrial strategy, I think there were some really clear markers there around what our future kind of capability priorities are going to be. So obviously the nuclear deterrent, submarines, cryptography, and then kind of more broadly, sensitive technologies, including combat air, shipbuilding, ground combat systems, complex weapons, and I think I've come back to munitions a couple of times. But obviously, in a genuine kind of war situation, then the kind of access to munitions and those just day-to-day things that I think people perhaps don't always think about are going to be absolutely essential to maintaining the kind of defence and security of the UK going forward. I think the other obvious point to make is that our colleagues in UK Defence Innovation have recently stood up, and we're working very closely with them to make sure that as far as possible there is a single way into MOD for suppliers, whether on our side they're interested in getting involved in the existing defence supply chain, or whether through innovation and support to innovators they're more interested in the support the UKDI will provide. So I think the two things working together are absolutely essential. I mean, ultimately, one of the criticisms that we come across, I think, is that we're quite good at supporting early TRL and innovation in the kind of early phases of development. I think we're quite good at supporting the existing defence supply chain. I think the route from innovator to supplier is perhaps not as strong as it could be. So I think one of the things that we're looking to do is making sure that working with UKDI, we can draw through some of those genuinely great ideas and the technologies that are coming on stream now, and turn them into kind of defence effect as quickly as possible.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's just talk about DPRT in a sec, but just before we do, a lot of suppliers are kind of obviously the major, the prime contractors that you've mentioned, but we know it's a long supply chain. You have your tier 2, tier 3, etc., etc. What's the MOD's thinking on the role of the tier 1s, the big primes, the mid tiers, and how should smaller businesses be positioning themselves in relation to these larger players? Because the MOD isn't always the direct buyer, is it?
Right, fantastic question, Graham. And the answer is, if you look at the opportunity for small businesses, simply in terms of value, then about a quarter of our spend with small businesses is direct, and 3/4 plus is in the supply chain. So I think from those really bare numbers, you can see that the role of the primes, the strategic partners, is absolutely essential to bringing small businesses on stream going forward. And by their very nature, a lot of smaller businesses are delivering components and subsystems rather than platform. So the role that they play is very much plugging into the supply chains of the more larger, kind of more established defence suppliers. What it means is they need to be really familiar with the defence environment. So do your homework. I think it was a point you made earlier, but understand who is delivering what kind of product and service to us directly. The website for the Office of Small Business Growth has a whole load of information and links out to the major suppliers, which will help. Again, our job, I think, going forward will be to help individual small businesses navigate that environment and steer them towards the opportunities that are right for them. I think that's the kind of starting point. I think where we want to get to, as I said before, is to have a single place to come and find those opportunities. So if we can get to a point where direct and indirect opportunities are being advertised in the same place, that for me is the kind of nirvana, is the starting point for genuine change, because it means you're not hunting around continually for opportunities.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to DPRTE, because for at least 2 days we're going to have a single place where suppliers can speak to the primes, they can speak to the MOD, and they can speak to other potential partners within the wider supply chain as well. So we genuinely believe this is one of the most important dates in the diary for any business that's either currently engaged with the MOD or is thinking about the MOD as a potential buyer. DPRTE 2026, as I said, is taking place on the 25th and 26th of March in Farnborough at the Farnborough International Exhibition and Conference Centre. It's a 2-day event. We went from 1 day to 2 days last year, really in response to market demand and just because of the sheer volume of content and information and insight that the market wanted to share. We have more than 120 speakers, including John, across the 2 days. We've got 2 keynote agendas with all the kind of the high-level stakeholders that you would expect to hear from at this kind of event, and 6 knowledge transfer zones covering the full range of topics that really matter to suppliers, from procurement innovation to export and supply chain resilience. And just picking up on the theme we were just talking about a bit there in terms of primes, I'm pleased to say we've got not 1 but 2 meet the buyer areas this year, hosted by Make UK Defence and ADS, where you can get some face time with MOD buyers, but also some of those big primes and tier 1 operators as well. So a really valuable opportunity for you as a supplier to come and speak to those organisations, and really importantly for you as a buyer as well. We've got MOD buyers on this webinar, for you to come and really understand the full gamut of what's happening across the MOD and defence procurement. And it is, one of the unique things about DPRTE is it really is one of the few events where you can walk straight into a conversation with people who are actually making procurement decisions, and that's a really precious commodity that perhaps isn't always as straightforward as it should be. So we're really excited about DPRTE. It's imminent. There's lots going on, huge array of suppliers, huge array of buyers, huge array of speakers, and really 2 days very well spent. If you can only come for 1 day, that's great. But 2 days is even better. And John, as I mentioned, you are speaking at the event, which is fantastic. Why are events like DPRT, and I guess specifically DPRT, so important? And what are you looking most forward to at the 2026 event?
Thanks, Graham. I think the way you've characterised DPRTE is exactly our experience, and in fact, it's been growing in excitement, I think, over the last few years, and that expansion from 1 day to 2 days, I think, worked really effectively last year. For us, it's an opportunity to engage number one, the whole of the supply chain. So because of the kind of demographic, if you like, because of the attendance at the show, is kind of very much established primes, mid-tiers, and a lot of smaller suppliers. It's that opportunity that you described, just to talk to people you don't normally engage with, to listen to their ideas, to listen to their experiences, to think about how they might fit into the supply chain more effectively. And I think the other thing is it's an opportunity to, I would characterize it as create collisions between people and organizations. So I think ultimately, if we're gonna deliver on the kind of policy objectives around improving engagement with small businesses, what we need to be doing is facilitating that kind of networking across the community. So not only talking to my colleagues in the delivery teams in the procurement organisations, but also talking to potential buyers, potential customers, and potential collaborators as well. Because I think if you think about how small businesses operate within defence, very often they're not working in isolation. They're working with a group of other suppliers to deliver outputs that we need. So DPRTE for us, I think, gives us the opportunity to, I'm not going to say force that networking, because you can't force collaboration, but it's certainly about bringing people together with a common interest, and give them the kind of high level story that they need. So we've got some really fantastic speakers from across defence talking over the 2 days. But that gives them an environment and a framework into which they can think about their own contribution. I think that is invaluable from our perspective.
Yeah, perfect summary. And I should say, it's probably on the screen, but to register, just go to dprt.co.uk. There are still spaces available for you to attend as a delegate on day 1, day 2, or both. And absolutely, if you're serious about being involved in this market, then it is time well spent. I don't think you'll get such a concentrated dose of MOD procurement insight and intelligence anywhere else right now. So yeah, definitely worth making your way down to Farnborough, and we look forward to seeing you there, of course. Now, John, we have fantastically overrun because there's so much that we can talk about. So before we leave you, just a final question. Yeah, what would be your single most important piece of advice to a supplier that wants to get onto the MOD radar and build a meaningful relationship with yourselves?
So the first thing I would say, Graham, is come and talk to us in the Office of Small Business Growth. We can help. Our job is to listen to what you've got to say, listen to and understand your needs, and then to link you up either with the information you need or the people across the defence environment that you need to talk to. Our job is, I've described it as connective tissue, but in effect, we've got the contacts internally. We work with a whole range of suppliers, customer organisations and kind of partner organisations right across the ecosystem. So we were in a really good position to help you find the right people to talk to. So my advice, very strongly, come and talk to us in the first instance.
That's great, John. Fantastic advice. Listen, thank you so much for joining us on the webinar today. That's been a generally valuable conversation. I wish we had longer because I think there's lots more we can get into, but obviously DPRT is coming up and I know there'll be plenty more conversations at that point. So thank you for taking the time out today and sharing those insights. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you shortly at DPRTE. I'm now going to hand over to John Rodigan from DCI. So John, as I mentioned at the outset of the webinar, works directly with defence suppliers and prospective defence suppliers every day. He helps them understand where the opportunities sit, how to position themselves effectively, and how to use market intelligence to turn insight into action. So he's going to share some practical advice and show you how you can navigate the defence landscape with confidence. So thank you to this, John, and I'm now going to hand over to the other John. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you, Graham and John, for the really interesting discussion there. I'm delighted to form part of this as well. What I'll really focus on in the next 10-15 minutes is how suppliers can turn the new opportunities within defence into a commercial advantage with our DCI service. So we know that defence spending is increasing and that SMEs and non-traditional suppliers are actively being encouraged to participate in the sector, and that supply chain engagement is becoming more of a priority for the authorities. So the opportunity is real. The challenge for suppliers is knowing where to focus and when to act. So DCI is really the intelligence layer between strategy and successful bidding for suppliers. So some common challenges that you maybe face yourself or have come up against in the past is that defence can feel complex and fragmented. It's hard to know whether to go direct to the Ministry of Defence or to engage procurement cycles is another area that some suppliers can find challenging, missing early engagement windows and limited visibility of pipeline opportunity and competitor activity as well. So the majority of SME spend flows through the supply chain, not directly from Ministry of Defence awards. So success in defence isn't necessarily about bidding more, it's about being smarter with what you're targeting. So how DCI helps? There's three practical advantages of the service. The first is visibility, so being able to see opportunities at a far earlier stage. We cover UK and international defence. There's also all of the pre-procurement notices are tracked, and frameworks and dynamic purchasing systems also, as well as forward signals that are aligned to industrial strategy priorities. So it ties directly into what the MOD are actually looking for by way of requirements, whether that's nuclear, shipbuilding, munitions, combat systems. But the message is pretty clear here. If you're waiting for an invitation to tender to appear, you're already behind. What you need to be looking for and considering is that once a tender does get published, that is quite often the last stage within the procurement cycle. The authorities at a far earlier stage, they might have been making recommendations to the authority in the last 6 months about how they should actually write these specifications, what the requirements should contain, all the while steering the MOD, or whichever authority it is, back towards using their own services. So for suppliers, it's about how you can time your engagement to be part of these consultations so that you can actively make the recommendations. But pillar 2 of DCI is understanding the supply chain. So what suppliers need to know are which primes are winning in their capability area, when contracts are being awarded, and who are the likely tier 1 and tier 2 partners that they should be engaging with. What technology themes are emerging, and it reinforces what John and Graham are saying about the Ministry of Defence as well. You need to do your homework, you need to understand who delivers what, and then you need to go away and position yourself correctly within the ecosystem as well. So DCI helps you identify where you fit before you go away and actually start knocking on those doors. And the final pillar to the service is about timing and positioning. So engaging with the authority before the procurement formally starts. Why this is critical is because innovation cycles are accelerating, early market engagement is increasing, and demand signals are becoming far clearer right across the public sector, not just in terms of defence specifically. But winning happens before the tenders do get published. Where we enable suppliers with our intelligence through DCI is to have more strategic conversations. It's to be able to look at partnership building, where the investment is likely to be happening, and to be able to plan ahead for that, and then aligning yourself at the correct point in the supply chain so you can position yourself for success. So again, our message is very clear. Defence is relationship-led and intelligence-driven. DCI supports both of these areas. So if you're going direct versus the supply chain, there's two routes here. You can go direct to the Ministry of Defence, where you're building out on your kind of, or you're speaking to them about your niche capability. They can then make recommendations to you on open frameworks or DPSs that they're using currently and where your capability might fit. And if it is indeed compliance heavy, they can make you aware of the requirements on their end and how you should go about obtaining this. Or instead of going directly to the authority, you might want to position yourself to the supply chain. And this is where the majority of the SME opportunity will lie. You can then plug into primes and what they are running. And there's often, if you are engaging with the supply chain, lower barriers to entry as well. And DCI supports both of those engagement routes, whether you want to go directly to the Ministry of Defence or whether you wanted to monitor exactly what the primes are running and engage with them at that point. So what I would say to the audience just now is please come and speak to me at our DPRT event on later on in March on the 25th and 26th down at the Farnborough International Exhibition Centre. What we can do at the event and what I'll be doing with suppliers is running through bespoke demonstrations of the service so they can make an initial assessment about how good a fit we actually are to help you go away and engage with the MOD, engage with other defence organisations, or indeed to monitor what the supply chain are actually winning as well. And the event will run over 2 days. I have a speaking slot on both, but you'll also find me at the DCI stand. The event will be a fantastic opportunity for suppliers to go away and network with each other, or indeed speak to buyers directly, reinforcing the importance of that early engagement strategy. So please come and see me at the event. And to conclude and finish off my part of the discussion just now, defence opportunity is indeed expanding, but the competition across the defence market is intensifying. The importance of having the right intelligence to support that early engagement strategy will increase your win rate and will create a commercial advantage for you as a supplier as well. And suppliers that combine policy awareness, supply chain insight, and proactive engagement will ultimately win more. So DCI ensures that when an opportunity moves, you're already in the correct position, not needing to go away and react to that. And so please come and speak to me at the event, guys. Love to have a chat with everybody involved, and I look forward to seeing you there.